we rely on the internet for so much these days, whether it's healthcare, education, communication. Digital equity is something that is being discussed on Cape Cod and beyond. The Cape Cod Commission is working with several Cape Cod towns, including the town of Sandwich, on municipal digital equity plans. I'm Sarah Colvin, the communications manager for the Cape Cod Commission, and joining me today is Steve Tupper, a deputy director of the Cape Cod Commission, who's working on digital equity, broadband, all sorts of things. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to talk today.
And let's talk a little bit about digital equity. When we say those words, what do we mean?
So digital equity means having the appropriate broadband connection, device, and the skills to use that connection. And that means something different for each individual and household. So in terms of the broadband connection, if you have someone who's working remotely, someone else streaming, someone doing their homework, it's meaning that you have enough bandwidth and reliability to do those activities. For someone who may be living alone, maybe it's having that iPad and being able to safely use it to connect to your social network so you don't feel isolated. And it means being safe online, so you can do things like online banking, sign up for health services, and know that your information is safe.
Absolutely. And as I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about all of the things that I do on the internet, which is almost everything. I mean, all of the documents at work are on the internet. I manage my healthcare through my chart. I, use my online banking. All of my bills get paid online. And so I feel like, having access to all of those things and as you said, the skills to be able to do that is so important.
Certainly, it's gone from a convenience to a necessity for everyday life. The need certainly became extra evident during the COVID pandemic, where we found a lot of services, including participating with your local government, went online, and those who had the right connection devices and skills were able to do it. We know that there were those that struggled.
Right. And so what are the challenges as you've been exploring digital equity in towns and across the Cape? What are the challenges that we face here on Cape Cod?
So we face some challenges that are common with everyone who's made this transition across the nation, and then some that are very unique to Cape Cod. So as a lot of things transitioned online, some residents were well positioned to do that, and we found some struggled. Maybe they hadn't traditionally done a lot of their activities online, and trying to understand how to use those devices and sign up became a challenge. Certainly, we found that there were some really great organizations on the Cape that kind of went into that space. People didn't necessarily see themselves as in the digital equity space, but they became navigators, and they helped seniors sign up for medical appointments. They helped those who weren't doing a lot of their online banking do it in that way. And really, we found that a lot of that grew organically. But there are some structural challenges here on Cape Cod, one being our seasonality. Both in the summer and when we saw an influx of people staying here during the pandemic, a lot of the systems set up were really not equipped to handle that. So we found some challenges that were somewhat unique to Cape Cod in that respect. And
so talk to me about a digital equity plan, specifically a municipal digital equity plan that, Town of Sandwich is one of the towns the commission is working with on that. What does that mean?
So it means really thinking hyper-locally about the challenges that exist. So there's a lot of planning at the state level and at the national level for infrastructure improvements, but we find that a lot of the challenges and a lot of the solutions happen locally. So for example, in the town of Sandwich, the Council on Aging, libraries, organizations of that nature have really been filling that void. So a lot of the digital equity planning work is identifying what's working and identifying where additional resources will be able to support those activities, so make sure that nobody is left behind in this transition.
And I know that the community is a big part of this project. I think this work can't be done in a silo. It can't be done just by kind of taking a look at that. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the workshop coming up, but talk to me a little bit about why it's so important to get feedback from the community.
Absolutely. We certainly have a lot of information from general online surveys. We understand speeds, but it's really that personal experience that drives what are the needs in this space. So having those direct conversations, we've been doing it organically through pop-ups at a number of community locations where people could just drop in and explain the challenges that they've been having. But we also find community workshops a really valuable way for someone to pop in, and maybe they don't know exactly what they're going to talk about, but when they get there, they tend to get rolling, whether they have issues with affording their broadband service or they realize that they don't have the device that's appropriate for what they're trying to do. So really talking one-on-one with individuals to make sure that we can develop solutions for the community is what we hope to achieve.
And of course, Sandwich residents have an opportunity to join us at a workshop coming up on December 6th at the beautiful new Center for Active Living over on Quaker Meetinghouse Road. Talk to me a little bit about who should come.
Really, anybody who wants to learn more about the digital world and anyone who's having any specific challenges, we really want to understand what those are. So come if you want to enjoy the light refreshments, but also come if you just want to interact. So we're going to have some interactive activities where we start to learn about what are the community needs. Even if someone's having an issue with their specific device, we can either try to help there or at least direct. We found there's a lot of good resources on Cape Cod and Sandwich in particular. So we want to make sure, that people are aware of the resources out there and also identify what those gaps are. So if you want to come and share the issues you're having with your broadband connection, whether it's not reliable, not affordable, we want to hear about that. If there's things you wish you knew how to do better online, we want to understand that to make sure that there's programming to support those needs in the future.
And so how will you then take all that information and incorporate it into the plan?
So we'll synthesize what we've been hearing at the workshop, at the pop-up locations, and also surveys and other data that we've been collecting, and be able to get a little bit more strategic along with the town there. So there are going to be funding opportunities coming out to address some of these needs. So the plan will really be a systematic way to identify those needs and prioritize those needs. We know the town of Sandwich specifically has done a lot with their new facilities and their new programs to be able to have that digital component. So this will be a strategic way to think about how to leverage those resources for their residents.
Great. So really just any citizen, anybody interested in learning a little bit more, who has some concerns about the internet, whatever it may be, with using devices, accessing all of the things on the internet, maybe some concerns about broadband speed and accessibility. If you're interested in the internet, you should come to this this session.
Absolutely, and we'd love to see a real cross-section. We know there's different needs of individuals living alone in their home, families, and businesses as well. They have a different use case for the internet, many of them requiring higher bandwidth connections. We want to understand those needs as well.
Great. And we'll talk a little bit more about the workshop in a minute, but I wanted to kind of step back a little bit because this is just one part of the broadband work that the commission is doing. Can you talk to me a little bit about kind of the overall assessment of broadband on the Cape and how that kind of plays into this, or how this plays into that?
So this is the local piece. Looking at the regional scale, we need to think more broadly about the underlying infrastructure that's supporting the Cape. We've been tasked by the Barnstable County Commissioners and the Assembly of Delegates to do a regional broadband needs assessment. And that's looking more on the technical side of things. What is our status in terms of broadband connections, and what are the issues we face as a region? I think we all have the anecdotal case studies of being on a Zoom meeting and dropping off, or not being able to make a phone call, or kind of the things that happen now and then, and even more so during the summer. But this is really a data-driven effort to understand what are those issues and what are potential solutions to address broadband and internet connectivity for the entire region.
Right, because the internet's not going anywhere, right? And I feel like we're going to become even more reliant on it, if that's possible, as the years go by, even with, the Internet of Things, all of our devices. I mean, my stove tells my television when it's preheated these days. It's amazing the future that we're living in. So I think having the access to the connectivity and those skills are all very important things. What have you learned so far along the way? Has there been anything that's surprised you about the kind of nature of broadband here on the Cape?
So I think the first thing is that I think I anecdotally understood that we're at the end of the line in terms of that infrastructure physically. That is the case. And we want to make sure that when funding is prioritized, that they understand that there are some unique challenges. We've just got a couple of connections of fiber coming over the bridges, and that really connects our whole region. So the vulnerability and the issues there are quite interesting. But I think what's been more impressive is really the local community efforts that have risen up organically to take on some of these challenges. So again, Council on Aging's, libraries, senior centers, those have really been filling a void. And in a lot of the conversations we've had, people maybe don't even realize the importance of what they're doing. So at the library, lending out hotspots, some tech check-ins at some of the senior centers. So they're small programs within the scope of what they do, but they can really be impactful for someone who's having a challenge, and that can really open up a world for them. So it's really been that local advocacy that I think is interesting to couple with kind of the big infrastructure side of the conversation.
And so what I'm hearing is that if people are having issues now, if they want to learn more, as we're developing this plan, as that's in place, those are the kind of places that you can go to seek help if you want to be able to be better at connecting to the internet.
Absolutely, and also to find ways to do it more affordably. So one program that a lot of people on Cape Cod are taking advantage of, but there's many more that are eligible, is the Affordable Connectivity Program. So that's a monthly credit that you get to sign up for internet. And if you sign up for a low-cost internet, you can actually get free internet through the Affordable Connectivity Program. So that's a federal program that's out there. If you qualify for any of the other programs, there's a good chance you can qualify for that based on income or other qualifications. But one challenge we see there is it's a two-step sign-up process, and it can be a barrier unto itself. So some of those local organizations have been helping with sign-ups as well.
Great. Well, we certainly hope to see everybody who's watching today at the Digital Equity Workshop on December 6th at 5:30 at the Sandwich Center for Active Living. Anything else that you'd like to say to encourage folks to come?
And I just think it'll be a great time. I think there'll be a lot of interactive elements at the workshop. You don't have to be a broadband expert. Everyone is a user in one way or another. So if you're just mildly curious, please show up and let us know what challenges you've been facing.
And there will be snacks.
There will be snacks. That always helps.
Great. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, I just want to invite everyone to join us at the Digital Equity Community Workshop taking place on December 6th at 5:30 p.m. at the Center for Active Living to talk about internet digital equity. For the Cape Cod Commission, I'm Sarah Colvin.